my past that I had no recollection of, and I could just feel the weights coming off my shoulders, and I could feel life coming as I just stared at that painting. And that was my first time of hearing how he could use a piece of art. I know he can do anything, but I never thought about him having people just look at a piece of art and then him revealing things. So he began to show me it's living art, just like the living word. You can read it at different times, and you can get different things out of it. Different things pop out of the word. Well, with art, I could be getting one revelation as I'm doing it, but someone else could look at it and get a total different revelation that he wants to speak to them. So he gave me that term, living art. But since then, I've had quite a few different people been moved by this one in particular for whatever reasons. I mean, he chooses what he wants on those. Another time, a lot of times I don't know what I'm going to paint before I come up, but I have an idea what I'd like to paint. Well, this particular morning at a conference, I woke up knowing exactly what I was supposed to paint, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. I knew I was supposed to paint Jesus dancing with the bride. Now, that's a very intimate subject, and I'd never painted anything like it, hadn't even done that many figures, to tell you the truth. So I was very dependent on him. And as soon as I started painting, I could not stop crying. And I haven't done that before or since. But it was one of the most intimate experiences with the Lord when I painted this. And wouldn't you know, ever since then, this was several years ago, wherever I travel throughout the States and I do conferences, of all the paintings, and that's in the hundreds now that I've done, this one stands out as the one that most people are really drawn to, are moved by, have said they've had the experience in a vision or whatever, dancing with the Lord. And it encouraged me because it made me realize there is a hunger out there for intimacy with the Lord. And that if it's a church, just like this church is grounded in prayer, if you're grounded in prayer, then you're going to be intimate with the Lord because you're hanging out with him a lot. So he showed me the more I hang out with him, the more I am intimate with him, he's going to keep showing me things. And if I'm faithful, just like a child, and I take that first step, that he'll honor that and he'll give me the next thing. But if I get sloppy about it and don't make time for him, I can go through dry periods too. I've had them off and on where I get caught up in the busyness of life and I don't really tap into all that he has for me. And so I get jolted back to, Lord, sometimes, and I'll just put on my absolute favorite worship music, which I always do when I paint anyway. I love painting live with the live music. It was wonderful worship tonight. And I had some great worship this morning at another church. I paint faster too, by the way, when it's a real anointed setting. I've noticed that. If I didn't have any music going at all, it'd probably take me hours to do the same painting that would take me about 45 minutes when I feel the anointing. So there's something in that. But anyway, so this one was the most intimate setting I've had, and it was just an amazing feeling. This is another cool one. I went through a series where, I was thinking, well, if I paint it once, I can't paint it again. But he showed me that doesn't matter. If he wants me to paint something every single time, the same thing, I need to be obedient. So he took me through a season where everywhere I was going, I was painting a lion. And this is just one of them, one of many, many, many lions. And I kept thinking, I want to paint a white lion, but I never could. I haven't painted a white lion yet. They keep ending up all these bright colors. So I just paint the colors he shows me, but I have purple lions, blue lions, green lions, lions with blue eyes. It was all these different colors. But this is kind of a fun one because this is one of those to me, kind of a supernatural one, because as I'm almost done with it, I spot on his nose this girl. See, there's a head and an arm on it because it was a paint over. I painted over another painting, which I do a lot of times when I don't like the other painting, and they turn out to be some of my favorite ones. So once I saw this girl right there, I saw that's someone worshiping the King. And so I just took a little gold paint and I kind of highlighted it and made it like that. But I named it Triumphant. And he's going to be on a book cover called Fit to Win. It's going to be coming out in the next couple of months. It's on becoming strong in mind, body, spirit, and finances, that kind of thing. And I've done quite a few book covers since then, and that's been kind of a challenge. It's also been fun to know that the Lord, and I just asked the Lord, what do I do for this book cover, just like anything else, and He gives me some ideas, and He gets me out of my comfort zone all the time. I'm getting kind of used to that. So let's see what else we have here. Oh, this was a fun one. This was the first time I painted at Women on the Front Lines. I had in my mind that I wanted to paint Deborah, like she's, village life ceases until I, Deborah, take over how's that go? Village life ceases until I, Deborah, step up and take my position, basically, is what she's saying. So I named it Rise Up. But as I was painting it, it started looking like Joan of Arc to me. And then it started looking like a female Braveheart, especially when I painted blue on her face. And then the Lord said, it doesn't have to be any of those people. It can be you, or it can be anyone who comes up and says, that's me. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. That makes sense. So I take it back to my table after I painted it, and the first person that walked up said, that's me. So I was encouraged by that. And since then, almost everywhere I go, I have quite a few different people come up and say, that's me. And there's that warrior in her, and she's got that glint in her eye, like she's gonna really go for it. So that was fun. Let's see what else we have. Okay, the next one is called The Crown. This was a commission piece. It's kind of an interesting story. It's a couple in Atlanta commissioned me to do this. Their daughter had been really in bad shape on drugs and not following the Lord at all. And she actually got visited by the Lord as she was driving and had to pull off the road shaking violently as she got a vision. It was an end-time type vision. And in the vision, there was a lot of lightning and tornadoes and volcanoes and all that kind of thing. But then the other half of the vision was a heavenly vision for the end-time vision with the streets of gold and so forth. Well, after she had that vision, it completely changed her life. And from that point on, she became an evangelist. All she cared about was going after what the Lord said to do and to bring people into kingdom. And she was an evangelist. And she did that for 2 years and brought many, many, many people into the kingdom. And she loved the Lord with all, but she died suddenly. And she was just in her 30s. And her parents were distraught. It was her only child. They grieved about it. And 9 years after that happened, they came to me and they said, Janice, we know that you're supposed to paint her vision. And they had kind of written it out for me. Now, that could have been very intimidating and challenging. And I had to really depend on the Lord because that was something very special to them. But the Lord just showed me how to do it. He said, to put the negative part kind of small up on one side, but let the positive thing dominate it, that she was in the kingdom, that she did run up those streets of gold, and that she was wearing the crown that was significant to them. So a couple neat things happened is, like I said, butterflies to me are very prophetic, and I had put a butterfly towards the bottom right anyway because I just wanted that to express that. And just so you know, there's symbols all over art of the masters. As I look back in my art history books, doves or different things would show up that represented Christian symbols that I didn't even think about when I was taking art history classes at Florida State. But now I realize they were weaving in all kinds of Christian symbols in those. And that's what I'm doing now. What the Lord leads are these symbols. So anyway, as I'm doing the streets of gold and I'm doing the highlighting on the mountains leading into the kingdom up there, it forms a butterfly. I don't know if you can see it up here. So once I saw that, then I just started highlighting it with gold. And I just thought that was kind of cool. And that happens a lot in prophetic art, that things will sort of appear in a painting, and then you can do something with it. The other thing that was kind of neat was, and you won't be able to see it here, but on the original, the Lord said, put a little sparrow up in the distance. It was just kind of a last thing I did. And when I took the painting to the parents, and we talked about it and stuff, they really loved it. And then right at the end, I just, offhandedly remembered something about the sparrow. So I mentioned this little sparrow up in the distance, and they both started tearing up about it. And it turns out that her favorite song was His Eyes on the Sparrow, and she was supposed to sing that song that morning at church when she passed away. So that was pretty significant. But the other factor was after she passed on. About 3 months after that, her mom was alone at her home, grieving over her daughter, and she heard a thud on the window, went outside, and there was a little bird that had hit the window. It was a sparrow, and it was all bloody, and the neck was broken. It was just laying there, and she scooped it up in her hands, held it up to the Lord, and said, "Lord, I know you can heal this little bird. I know you can." And she's just, grieving deeply. Next thing she knows, it sits up and looks at her and flies away. So all of a sudden, all that grief left her. It just left, off her shoulders, and she was able to deal with life in a different way after, so all that deep pain. So over the years, I've just been getting countless stories of what God's doing through this thing of prophetic art. And I'm also hearing stories about when I do this thing of praying over people to get released of their creative blockages, that people are saying, "Well, I've been talking about writing a book for many years, and I'm finally going to write it." Or I haven't written a song for 5 years, one girl said, and then she goes home and writes one that night after just getting a simple prayer. And so I know that God is in this thing, and He wants to do it. I believe there are several of you in here right now who have said, "I know I'm supposed to write a book, and I'm going to do it sometime," but you haven't done it yet. Is there anybody here that knows you're supposed to write a book? Okay, there's a few. Good. And there are other things that there's that still small voice that says something that you should do something. We're here. God's speaking to us all the time, but how often do we actually hear what He says? And then how often do we really do what He says to do? Because if we'll just step in and do what He says to do, there's no telling what the next thing's going to be. Just like with me, if I hadn't really listened, well, I don't really like painting that much, I'm not going to do it. Or I'm not going to go paint live in front of people when I don't really want to do it. I mean, every little step that we take when we get out of our comfort zone could lead to something else we have no clue of. I mean, if we'd never listened to Him about going to the inner city and done this thing called Blood and Fire, we wouldn't have all those amazing stories that we had during that season, and seen so many lives changed, and our lives were drastically changed, even more than them, because we just started learning the heart of God, and His heart is with the poor. So whenever we can do something to help them financially as well as getting our hands dirty, it makes all the difference in the world. So I wanted to just mention a few of the things that are the blockages of creativity, and then one of the main things I wanted to do tonight was just pray to break those things off of you. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but I'm going to hit some of the biggies to see how, which ones would really fit you guys. But I would say, like I said before, the biggest one is just believing you're not, am I doing something wrong? You're not creative. And we need to believe that we are, and we need to walk in it. Another one is perfectionism. How many would say perfectionism comes against you? It definitely came against me. I'm still fighting it here and there. But I think that's why He has me do big brush strokes, and He has me paint with paper towel a lot of times to get away from all the little detail stuff that has to be just perfect. But it's actually more fun, too. I love to have fun when I'm painting, and that does it a lot more fun than being all detail-oriented. So perfectionism is a huge one. All the different fears. Fear of man. It's talked about the apple thing. So a fear of man is a big one. Fear of failure. A lot of cases where you don't even start because you feel you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to do it well enough. Another thing is not ever feeling like something is done, once you get started. So you got fear of failure. And procrastination is a biggie. Putting things off. You always can find time. You can actually find time for the things you really want to do. What you have to realize, if God puts something on your heart that He wants you to do, you're actually being disobedient if you don't do it. And I didn't think of that before. And once I realized that, I realized it's not right for me to not do something if I don't feel like it or I don't think I have time, because I can make time. If I look at my schedule, there are things that I could cut out. We all could.